Hello everyone, I'm Janet Hsiao from University of Hong Kong. The title of my talk is The Role of Eye Movement Consistency in Learning to Recognize Faces, Computational and Experimental Examinations. In face recognition, it has been shown that the eyes are the most diagnostic features, and adults who look at the eyes more often have better performance. For example, using the eye movement analysis with Hidden Markov Models, EMHMM method, we have discovered eyes-focused and nose-focused eye movement patterns from the participants, and the eyes-focused pattern is associated with better recognition performance. However, this association between looking at diagnostic features and recognition performance was not observed in children. For example, Wilson and colleagues showed that in children, the frequency of looking at the eyes does not predict better performance. Also, children with autism spectrum disorders did not differ from matched controls in the frequency of looking at the eyes in static face recognition, regardless of their poorer performance. Here, we hypothesize that for early learners, such as children, their recognition performance may be reflected in eye movement consistency rather than eye movement pattern. This is because adults are shown to have visual routines for face recognition that persist over time. For example, here shows the distribution of the first fixation of two different participants, with one consistently looking at the eyes and the other consistently looking at the nose. This kind of visual routines is shown to facilitate extraction of learned diagnostic features. Thus, when children are developing visual routines during early learning, inconsistent eye movements may reflect difficulty in discovering and extracting diagnostic features to develop a visual routine, resulting in suboptimal performance. And the discovery and extraction of diagnostic features may depend on cognitive abilities. We test this hypothesis through both computational and experimental examinations. We first propose a new computational model that combines a deep neural net and a hidden Markov model that simultaneously learn the optimal perceptual representation and eye movement strategy in face recognition. We examined how the model's recognition performance is associated with eye movement pattern and consistency at different learning stages. We expected that consistency and pattern of eye movements would better predict performance at early and late learning stages, respectively. We then recruited children as participants and examined whether their face recognition performance was better predicted by consistency than pattern of eye movements. Before we talk about the new model, we would like to first introduce the eye movement analysis with Hidden Markov Models, EMHMM approach for eye movement data analysis. EMHMM is a data-driven approach that provides quantitative assessment of a human participant's eye movement pattern, taking both spatial and temporal dimensions of eye movements into account. Hidden Markov Model, or HMM, is a statistical time series model in machine learning. In the EMHMM approach, we first summarize an individual's eye movements using an HMM in terms of personalized regions of interest and transition probabilities among the regions of interest. For example, here shows a participant's model. The ellipses showed the ROIs as 2D Gaussian emissions. The prior values indicate the probabilities that a fixation sequence starts from the ellipse. The transition probabilities indicate the probabilities of observing a particular transition. With the individual HMMs, we can cluster them using the VHEM algorithm to discover representative group HMMs, such as the eyes-focused and nose-focused eye movement patterns discovered in face recognition. With the representative group HMMs, we can quantify similarities of an individual's eye movement data to the representative patterns using the log likelihoods of the data being generated by the representative models. For example, we can quantify whether an eye movement pattern is more eyes-focused or more nose-focused. With these similarity measures, we can examine the relationship between eye movement pattern and other measures, such as the positive correlation between face recognition performance and similarity to the eyes-focused eye movement pattern. Based on the EMHMM method, here we propose a novel model, DNN plus HMM, for modeling eye movement strategy learning. It is important to note that as compared with EMHMM, which is for eye movement data analysis, DNN plus HMM is fundamentally different. It is a deep learning model for modeling eye movement strategy learning. In DNN plus HMM, in addition to fixation locations and fixation transition information, the HMM also contains information about attention window size associated with each fixation. The general idea of the model is, during learning, the DNN learns optimal perceptual representations under the guidance of an attention mechanism summarized in an HMM, and the HMM learns optimal eye movement strategies through feedback from the DNN. More specifically, the HMM generates a sequence of fixations, including location and spatial frequency scale, to simulate attention window according to its initial probabilities, transition matrix, and emission densities. The attention window of each fixation is simulated by applying a Gaussian mask centered on each fixation location and scale to the input image. The masked images are then fed into a multi-scale convolutional neural network, or CNN, to extract image features at different spatial frequencies. The extracted image features then aggregated over time to form the visual short-term memory. At each time step, a multi-layer perceptron uses the current visual memory to predict the face identity. Finally, the loss functions of the predictions across time steps are combined for training. Thus, during training, the HMM and CNN simultaneously learn the most appropriate sequence of fixations and perceptual representations from these fixations for face recognition. In the current simulation, we trained 80 models with different initializations representing 80 individuals. We used over 3,000 images from 100 individuals in the aligned labeled faces in the wild data set and used 90% of the data for training and 10% for validation. We assessed the model's eye movement behavior after 100 epochs as partially trained models to simulate children, and after 500 epochs as well-trained models to simulate adults. Eye movement consistency was assessed using the HMM's overall entropy. Entropy is a measure of predictability. Higher entropy indicates low consistency. Eye movement pattern was assessed using EMHMM. For more information about modeling details, please refer to our paper. Here shows the modeling results. In the pattern figures, the size of the cross at the center of each ROI indicates attention window size. For both partially trained models and well-trained models, after we cluster the 80 models into two clusters, as can be seen here, pattern A was more eyes-focused and pattern B was less eyes-focused. However, the partially trained models generally had bigger ROIs. And note that the two representative patterns from the well-trained models match well with those from adult participants. When we compare the performance between models using the two eye movement patterns, in partially trained models, the two patterns did not differ significantly in recognition performance. In contrast, in well-trained models, the more eyes-focused patterns had better performance than the less eyes-focused models. Thus, the current modeling result was consistent with the finding that in adults, those who looked at eyes more often performed better in face recognition. We then examined the relationship between recognition performance, eye movement pattern, and eye movement consistency. In the world trend models, a significant correlation was found. The most eyes focused the pattern, the better the recognition performance. This is again consistent with adults' data. However, no correlation was found between performance and eye movement consistency as measured in entropy, as most models have converged to a low entropy level. In contrast, in partially trained models, no correlation was found between eye movement pattern and performance. And a strong correlation was found between eye movement consistency and performance. More consistent eye movement pattern was associated with better recognition performance. This finding is consistent with our hypothesis that eye movement consistency is a better predictor for recognition performance at early learning stages. These results were consistent with adult participant data, where better recognition performance was associated with more eyes-focused eye movement pattern, and no correlation was found between recognition performance and eye movement consistency. We then examined whether children's face recognition behavior could be predicted by these partially trained models. We recruited 89 Asian children aged 6 to 11. They performed a standard face recognition task where they learn 16 faces and then make all new judgments among 32 faces. They performed 2 blocks of the task. To examine what can predict children's eye movement pattern and consistency, they also perform a list of cognitive tasks to measure their selective attention, working memory, visual attention, task switching, and executive function abilities. The results showed that in eye movement data, similarly, after we clustered the 89 individual models into 2 clusters, we discovered eyes-focused and nose-focused patterns. This result generally matched the modeling results from partially trained models. In addition, consistent with our modeling data, children adopting the 2 patterns did not differ significantly in recognition performance. In contrast, when we divided the children into low and high eye movement consistency groups, those with high consistency showed better recognition performance. When we examine the relationship between children's recognition performance, eye movement pattern, and consistency, consistent with the modeling data from partially trained models, recognition performance was not correlated with eye movement pattern. In contrast, it was correlated with eye movement consistency. In summary, consistent with results from partially trained models, we found that children's face recognition performance was better predicted by eye movement consistency rather than eye movement pattern. This result is consistent with our hypothesis that early learners' recognition performance may be reflected in eye movement consistency rather than eye movement pattern. In addition, through multiple regression analysis, we found that children's eye movement consistency was best predicted by their performance in the flanker and Tower of London tasks, suggesting that it was associated with children's selective attention and executive function abilities. In conclusion, through both computational modeling and experimental studies, here we show that in face recognition, while looking at diagnostic features is associated with better performance in adults, in children, the consistency of eye movements, rather than where they look, better predicts performance. This phenomena is because inconsistent eye fixations during early learning, even if landing on diagnostic features, can signify difficulty in discovering and extracting diagnostic features to develop a visual routine, leading to suboptimal performance. Consistent with this speculation, children's eye movement consistency was related to their selective attention and executive function abilities. In addition, here we propose a novel computational model, DNN plus HMM, for modeling eye movement strategy learning. It accounts for the human data well, demonstrating good cognitive plausibility. This method can also be applied to other learning tasks. If you're interested in our EMHMM method, please feel free to visit our website. Thank you.